I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really sure how best to start this review. Back in 2021, there was a Kickstarter for a new game built from the ground up for the Game Boy Advance. I was excited, especially after trying the developer's demo. One that, while playable in a web browser, was also fully compatible with official Game Boy Advance hardware. Granted, to play it, you would need a flash card, but it was still pretty cool. This was the first time I actually put money into something on Kickstarter, and even went out of my way to back a physical edition when that would be ready. The game itself was finished and playable all the way back in 2023, and the people who backed enough got a ROM file that they could play on an emulator or a flash card, much like the demo. As for that physical release, I'll get to that later. As for the demo itself, I feel that's as good a place as any to start. It starts with a little spacefaring dog named Maxwell. We later learn in the full game that he's trying to find a way to help his home planet of Canis Major. So, in the meantime, he's traveling to distant planets in a way to help, but we don't really get that in the demo. The demo itself doesn't really have a whole lot of story to it, though in its defense it can easily be beaten in about 20 minutes. The main thing I want to bring up here that is important to the full game is the character of Crowpet and the Core Beast. Crowpet is a cat-looking creature that wears what appears to be a cute little frog-themed outfit. Hi, Glitch from the future here. So, doing a bit more research and looking at the manual and supplementary prologue comic that retells the events of Chapter 0, Crowpet, I think, is actually supposed to be closer to a tadpole and not a cat. The sprite just looks like a cat to me, so anyway, back to your regularly scheduled review. As for the Corbies, they are these creatures that hold immense power. The only thing we need to know right now is the crystals on their heads can be used for many things, so Crowpet and Max take one before the demo is over and flee the planet. While this leads directly into the full game, I do want to quickly sidetrack and talk about the gameplay mechanics, mostly because they stay the same between the demo and the full release, with a few added bells and whistles for the full game. Firstly, the game is a Metroidvania-styled platformer, and that is definitely felt in the gameplay, as Max feels like Samus would in a Metroid game. However, there are plenty of things that set this game apart. Firstly, Max doesn't really have his own version of the Morph Ball. He does have a way to get into smaller areas, but that ability isn't really obtained until about halfway through the full game. And even then, it's not a crawl into a ball sort of thing, it's actually a shrink ray. Secondly, each planet you travel to has these gates that will take one of Max's abilities away from him temporarily. This can lead you to run through an area without your blaster, shield, or jetpack. Frankly, I feel it makes the game unique, as you do have all of your main abilities from the start and never really lose them permanently. Plus, you do get further upgrades for the blaster. However, you don't really have a typical health system that other Metroidvanias might have. Your health works closer to a Mario game in the fact that you can only really take 2 hits if you have the shield. If the shield isn't active or you pass a gate that took it away, Max can only take 1 hit before returning to the most recent checkpoint you passed. That's not to say the game is particularly challenging, just different. There also aren't as many upgrades as most Metroidvania games have. For starters, there's no way to upgrade your health past the shield. And it's not like you get a better shield later. What you start with is what you have until the end of the game. Secondly, most of the upgrades you get are mainly for the blaster. The only other upgrade you can get is a laser sword that you can use when you don't have the blaster. Frankly, it kind of reminds me of how the weapons work in Ratchet and Clank, and mostly the original Ratchet and Clank. As for the blaster upgrades, you only really get 5. A charge shot, a shrink ray, a drill, a teleport beam, and a rapid fire ability that lets you shoot more often. And while they are useful, they're more useful in side quests as opposed to the main story, which I think it's about time to get back to that. The game properly starts right where the demo left off, with Max and Crowpet fleeing the planet from the demo, only to find out that they were being followed. We won't exactly see who is following us at this point, but they do shoot us down, causing us to crash on a nearby planet. If you didn't play the demo, this planet will easily teach you the ropes, and it's even helpful if you hadn't played the game in a while. The planet that Max crashes on houses an observatory, which, unfortunately, a part of Max's now broken ship is lodged into. Thankfully, the cloud-like professor who runs the place doesn't seem all too angry at us, considering he actually assumed Max died in the crash, which, thankfully, Max's shield protected him. I'm more surprised at what the shield won't protect him from. After helping the professor and this monkey-looking guy here, they are able to fix our ship and give us coordinates for 3 planets that are nearby. Unfortunately, Max spends most of the game looking for a hyperdrive, which I assume got destroyed in the crash, so it's time to explore what planets we have to try and find one. Unfortunately, none of these planets have the hyperdrive we're looking for, though we do get to meet some new friends. This is another mechanic for the game: friend cards. Pretty much every character you meet in the game, outside of enemies, can give you their friend card. For some of these characters, all you have to do is help them in a small side quest, whereas for others, you get their cards just by talking to them. For instance, a crocodile character named Crocs that we meet on a trash planet gives us his friend card if we help him get items to make him into a, quote, cool guy. And I just love how silly the characters in this game are. It definitely has the feel of a quirky Nintendo-styled game, to the point that I believe if you were to show this to somebody 20 years ago, it would easily fit in. The fact that it can easily be put onto a flash card and booted up on real hardware is also really nice. On top of that, the game was brought over to PC and Steam. I do recommend this version as it has full controller support and even has some nice additions as well, including higher quality soundtrack, rumble support, which, to be fair, that is available if you play the game on an emulator or Game Boy player, and even 2-player support. Sadly, while I did play this version of the game for the review, I haven't gotten a chance to try the multiplayer mode yet. It'd be easier if I had a friend that I could play the game with, but the only one I could play with is Pixel, and he doesn't really have hands to hold a controller. Just because you have gyro support and can be easily used for a motion controller does not mean you can easily play other games. I should probably make you a pair of hands or something, though. Anyway, back to the game itself. While exploring the planet, we eventually find ourselves in an underground area. Here, Max finds a trio of bears that are extracting a large gem from the skull of a dead corpse. Noticing that he's spying on them, the main bear, named Blank, I think, has the other two fight Max before retreating, as actually killing him is taking too long. He does warn us, however, to stay out of his business before teleporting away. We see them again almost immediately once we return to Crocs with the last piece he needs to be a cool guy. Instead of taking him on ourselves, Plank, the main bear, uses a mining laser to try and defeat him, especially because if Max survives the laser, what's down this hole will certainly kill him. Unfortunately for Max, the creature down this hole is a living corpse. Thankfully though, we don't actually have to fight it, as Crocs jumps in and kills the beast in one hit, before giving us the blade to defend ourselves if we don't have our blaster. He also upgrades our ship's engines to explore more planets. Unfortunately, it's still not a hyperdrive, but it does let us get further. It especially leads us to Witchburg, which has a witch who gives us some of the game's lore if we give her herbs from around all the different planets. This is where we get most of the backstory, as the game doesn't focus as much on the wider story, and instead chooses to let it be more of a background element. I'm a little upset at this, mostly because it feels as if the Dead had a lot more lore in mind, but didn't really let it be all that explored. For instance, Maxwell left his planet to try and find a way to save it, but we don't get any info past that. We do know the name of the planet, but that's about it. There are also core beasts that clearly have immense power, but I would like some lore on them, other than they're just these powerful creatures that everyone kind of fears. I do wonder if it was made this way to leave stuff open for a hypothetical sequel. But as for this standalone project, I just wish things were explained a little bit better. It's not to say the story is bad, but there are just some details I wish could be elaborated on a bit. Speaking of that story, it appears that Max has been arrested while I was talking, so it looks like we'll have to find a way out. On the bright side, all of our friends from the demo of the game are here and on this prison planet. On top of that, we are given a blaster upgrade that lets us use it as a drill so we can go mining for gems for whatever reason. And while in this mine, we can find some items that can be used to make a bomb so we can break our way out of here. Unfortunately, our ship is behind some locked doors, so we need to break out a code breaker that is locked in the prison's high security area. Once we get our blaster, shield, and jetpack, we quickly head over to free them, only to find that it's our crow pet. Looks like he got captured between the demo and the full game, as well as the rest of the people in this prison. With all of our friends now saved, we head off to Echelon Prime, the home of the main villains of the game, the Council, which look to be these strange squid-like creatures with large eyeballs. Before we can confront them, however, Plank teleports us far away to a distant planet in hopes of getting rid of us once for all. Not that it works, as we almost immediately find a way to teleport ourselves back to Echelon before heading to the Council's chamber. Fed up with Maxwell constantly interfering with their plans, they decide to send us into the chamber of a core beast that they just happen to have locked up. Looks like the only way out of this is to defeat the monster in one of the game's final boss fights. Well, maybe boss fight isn't the right term. It feels more on par with Mother Brain from the first Metroid, as this fight consists of us doing a small obstacle course to hit a weak point and get this thing's health down. Once we get it down enough, Plank steps in to stop us before realizing the Council double-crossed him. Which, I mean, I definitely wouldn't trust those eye squid things. Deciding to work together, he helps us drastically drain the health of the beast before we deal the final blow. But that doesn't mean we're out of the woods just yet, as the Council decides to just kill Maxwell themselves as we fall down what appears to be the pit that they were keeping the beast in. Luckily, collecting any of the gems that are also falling charges up a hyper beam for our blaster. Guess they needed that last epic boss fight akin to Super Metroid. Not that I'm complaining, as it is a fun boss fight. And if we do collect all of the friend cards, they tell us that there is a secret way of activating the hyper beam, though I wasn't able to do this myself. Once finishing off the council, we use a small shard of a crystal that teleports us back to the observatory. During the fall, Plank got pretty badly hurt, but the professor is willing to help him before asking if Maxwell will return back to his home, to which he chooses to stay for now and just in time for the all-planet parade to begin, which is basically just the credits. And that is Goodboy Galaxy. We have a pretty nice credits roll complete with a fully voiced song. And this isn't just something for the higher quality soundtrack on PC. The song is even included in the GBA version, which I find pretty impressive, considering I don't frankly remember another Game Boy Advance game that did something like this. And all of the backer names from Kickstarter are included. Mine as well. There I am. More than happy to back this game, but I guess I should address the elephant in the room. I backed this game back in 2011, and it took about 2 years to come out. That's not the problem, as the devs would constantly talk to the backers and let us know what was going on. The thing is, I and a ton of other backers had put money towards a physical copy, and the game itself was ready in 2023. Problem is, the company that was supposed to supply the physical release, First Press Games, has since ghosted the devs and even the original backers of the game. Many people have requested refunds, but haven't received either the game nor the refund. The devs have since retracted their contract with First Press Games, but they're still selling the game on their website illegally. Now the only way to get a physical copy is to purchase the game from the itch.io page and put it on a flash card, or to purchase the game on Steam. The only item that I have purchased from FPG and received is a nice plush of Maxwell, but you would think that we would receive at least some news. I'm not mad at the devs, as they have constantly been talking to the community and letting people know what is going on. I did receive a copy of the ROM for the game and did a full playthrough of the game on GBA as well as PC, which again is how I played it for this review. Despite all of the problems, I wholeheartedly recommend this game. You can get it from the itch.io page, which I'll have listed below, or buy it from Steam, so that you can support the official devs of the game. I would have tried to steer away from the controversy with the publisher, but I wanted to make sure that I addressed it so that if you decide to get the game, you don't give money to a place that is selling the game illegally. It would be as if you bought a reproduction copy off of eBay or Etsy, which wouldn't be terrible, but it would be better to get the game officially and support the devs that put the time and effort into the game. I pray that I don't have to talk about a situation where a publisher screwed over a developer like this, but I know that this won't be the only time I will. But I'd rather end the game on a more positive note. The game is fun, and while playing it, I was slightly reminded of not just Metroid, but, strangely, Ratchet and Clank. The quirky atmosphere of the game and the characters certainly help with that, and there's plenty here to enjoy. I didn't even mention the mini-games that are included, such as Burger Dog, where Max has to try and make burgers as the ingredients drop from the top of the screen. This actually reminds me of an old Flash game from Lilo and Stitch. Hell, there's a Minesweeper clone you can get just by helping a skeleton recharge his spacesuit. There's plenty of charm here, and I wish more people could have a chance to play it. Funnily enough, there is a physical release of the game that is official and not steeped in controversy. If you happen to own an Evercade console, a system focused on indie and retro game releases, there's a version of the game that was released there, as well as a game called Witch and Whiz. I personally am tempted to buy the game again there just to have it, though my problem is I don't currently have an Evercade. But with that out of the way, I feel the mood to return to Ratchet and Clank. And as for the game itself, if any of the developers are watching this review, I am more than happy to have played this game. And if you guys ever make a sequel or another game, I'll probably gladly back that or support it in any way I can. This was a fun game, and it does sadden me that First Press Games has been screwing over the developers just in general. But hopefully that doesn't deter anyone from trying the game out. With all that being said, I'll see you guys next time.